Hello and welcome to Maldorma TV. My name is Magnus Alber and this is episode 25.
And I'm Tobias Alber.
In this episode we have a very special guest named Anazya Stewart. She's an amazing spiritual person and we met this summer here in Sweden and have kept contact since then. She has her own company or label called Voices of Light, and you will find it in the description below. She also has a healing collaboration with a woman called Allison, and that are called Resource Healing. You can also find that on Facebook and in the description below.
Yeah, and in this episode, we talk to get together with her about the spiritual awakening that we believe is taking place. This is something that we have discussed here on Maldorma TV before on previous episodes, so this might be a bit of a repetition, but there's a bunch of new stuff there as well, so be sure to check it out.
Yeah, and Isa has a lot of very interesting perspectives to share as well.
For sure. So enjoy the episode.
Yeah.
Okay, hello all. We're sitting here today to talk about the spiritual awakening. I'm Tobias from Maldorma, together with Magnus from Maldorma, and Anazya from Voices of Light.
Hi.
And today's topic will be, as I said, the spiritual awakening. And we'll try to discuss around that topic and see where we end up. But I think before we get into all that, it could be interesting for all our viewers to know our spiritual background and basically how we all came together as well to have this call today. So who want to go first? Should I start?
Yeah, you go.
Yeah, you continue.
All right. So my spiritual background, for those of you who are already familiar with Maldorma, you can see this in the very first episode. But for me, I'm not sure if you have heard it, Anazya, so could be new for you as well. So basically, I didn't have any spiritual interest for the most part of my life up until 25 years old, I think. So I've been trying to find happiness through society's way of earning money and all that, and gradually getting more and more depressed, just working and trying to earn money and all that. And eventually I became a manager at the age of 25 and thought all right, now life is actually going to change. Now I'm going to start earning more money. I'm going to be more happy and all that, you know the story. But none of that happened. Quite the opposite. I just spent more time at work and less freedom. A little bit more money, yeah, but didn't really make me happy. So I started to try to find out how can I find a happiness that is consistent? Because there's always the ups and downs. If you go on a vacation, of course, you're going to have a good time. But then when you go back to the grind, you get depressed and all that. So it's just an up and down. So I started to get into philosophy to try to understand myself and understand how do you find true happiness. And actually it was Magnus who introduced me into spirituality, because he noticed that I had been interested in spirituality or started to get interest into philosophy.
Yeah, I saw a book of Plato in your bookshelf.
Yeah. And it's quite funny because Magnus had been interested in spirituality for 10, 15 years before that without telling anyone in the family. So that it was quite interesting that he just out of nowhere sent over I think it was a video that you suggested I should watch. And it was quite astonishing when I watched that video. I just remember sitting in the sofa, and when I watched the video, can't remember exactly what it was in the video, but it was connected to the third eye and more talking about spirituality from a non-religious point of view. And I just remembered when I watched it that I really connected to something like a déjà vu feeling. I've heard all of that before, even though I saw it for the very first time. So I had this really deep sensation that this is something true to all this. And I had this sensation that I need to sit down and meditate. So I have never prior to this meditated before, so I just said, oh, well, what the hell? I'll just go with the feeling. So I went into my bedroom, sat on the bed, and started meditating. And in that moment, a wave of unconditional love just swept over me, like completely taken away by it. Just bathing in love. That was really cool. I can't remember how long it lasted, but it just washed away everything. Like the depression that I had built up from my teens up until like 25 years old just vanished in an instant, like that, just bathing in love. And then after that, I started feeling like an energy moving from the bottom of my spine, rising from the bottom up until the crown of my head, and just energy like moving through my body, like a power plant being like turned on and being recharged again. And then after that, I got kind of freaked out by it. I don't know how long I sat in that state or in that meditation, but eventually I kind of got freaked out about what was happening because I had no idea. So I opened my eyes and went out to like the living room again. And everything I looked at just had this divine glow to it. Like everything was connected. I could see everything was beautiful. Everything had God in it. Like my sofa, the flowers, the floor, the carpet. It was like everything was glowing with divine. So I was in this state of just being in a state of awe or state of mesmerization of how beautiful the world was, that I had seen it for what it actually is for the very first time. And I just remember I walked towards the window as well and looking at people outside, just had this connection of unconditional love towards like everyone. Didn't matter who they were, like tall, short, different race. It didn't matter at all. It's just unconditional love towards them. And I stayed in this like state of awareness for a week. Just everything that had been from the past with the depression just cleansed, gone. Was just in a really beautiful state. I went to work afterwards, and I don't think I did anything besides just sitting and watching. Like my stapler, my pens, I was just mesmerized by everything. It was just a really cool experience. Then like after 1 week, kind of went away, or I got stabilized in it, or it went away. Then a few days later, I like picked up the phone and called Magnus like, I watched the video and I meditated and some things happen. I don't think I told you everything. Like, I felt this wave of energy and stuff like that. I didn't go into any specifics.
You talked about the energy moving up the spine, and for me that sounded like a Kundalini rising that I had read about. I hadn't experienced myself at that time, though. But that led to you and I started to hang out and discussed and exploring spirituality a lot. And the story continues. Like if you go into Maldorma TV and listen to the podcast, we talk in depth about everything that happened after that experience, pretty much. Because that was pretty much the beginning.
Yeah, I think that I think we can go into your experience, your awakening.
And me?
Yeah, how it happened for you?
Yeah. Well, basically, for me it started at a very young age. I remember as a kid praying a lot to God and being interested in Christianity and in Jesus. But I guess like my real awakening, or when it started for real, was when I was 17. I was lying in bed at home, and I realized I had this deep insight that I don't know anything about anything. I don't know if the world is real or if it could be a dream or an illusion of some sort. I don't even know if I am real. With the personality and the body and all that. I realized that it's possible that I am actually just a consciousness believing that I am a human being and believing that I'm in this reality, but I'm actually something else. I didn't think that that was the case at that time, but I realized that there's no way to prove that my current experience was real. And that kind of blew my mind, that experience, that insight. And I kind of got obsessed with the question, what is truth? And I tried to pin down, what can I be sure of? And the only thing that I knew I could be completely sure of is that I am something experiencing something. And the something experiencing the something might be actually be the same something. I didn't know. But I couldn't say that any of the characteristics of the personality, my body, or my experience, they could be illusory. It could be like a dream. I could be an alien dreaming that I was a human being in this world. I could be just a non-physical entity, or I could be a human being. I didn't know. But the only thing I was sure of was that I was something experiencing something, and that was pretty much it. And I became really obsessed with this question, and I have actually dedicated my life to this question. I haven't gone one single day since that day that I haven't explored this question, which is, I'm now 39, so it's quite a few years exploring that one question. But a lot of things have happened, and it led me into spirituality quite soon after that. I think I started to go into spirituality at like 19 or 20. I started to read about Buddhism and Hinduism first, and then alternative stuff like UFOs and things like that. And eventually I found this Danish spiritual teacher called Martinus that really gave a lot of the answers that I was searching for. And pretty much what he said is the world is an illusion and we are not who we think we are. And then fast forward, when Tobias had his awakening, he and I started to explore psychedelics, and we actually experienced the truth many times as glimpses. And then eventually it started to happen by itself, and yeah, it's been an amazing story. Amazing journey, for sure. So pretty much where you and I are now, Tobias, I guess, is, I mean, in one way it feels like I have found all the answers I need, but at the same time it feels like I don't know anything. But I have a completely different relationship with not knowing than I had back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I guess we will go into more of this later. Now to you, Anazyas.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing both your stories. Tobias, it's really beautiful to hear your story. I have heard Magnus's, but that's pretty incredible what you shared. So thanks, both of you. So for me, around the age of 14, I was diagnosed with depression. And so before that, I don't know, I grew up in Brooklyn. And I went to a Catholic school, and I was pretty normal, like in that way. I never had, I was in Catholic school, but I wasn't spiritual. I was religious in a dogmatic way. Like I studied the Bible, like I studied math, like just because we were supposed to do it. I didn't really feel any sort of difference towards it, for whatever reason. But around 14, I was diagnosed with depression, and that was something I was struggling with for many years. And when I went to university, I went abroad, and I took shrooms, and I climbed a tree, and I realized when I was in a tree that I'm a tree, that like I'm nature, that nature isn't a separate experience from my own body. And that really changed my life because I started pursuing farming and started pursuing spending time out in nature. And that took me to woofing and traveling in Europe. And it just kind of, when I realized the earth was like in here and out there, it's like every medium in between, that really sort of opened up my my perception of what life could be, growing up in a city that was kind of so devoid of naturality. And then when I was traveling. So after I graduated from university, I was traveling, and I was still depressed like throughout all this time. So maybe I'm like early 20s. It's better. It's manageable. It's not as apparent like when I was in high school. Like you could really see what was happening, but I was able to kind of manage it. But it was still happening. And my friend was traveling in Berlin. I went to go visit her, and she told me about meditation. And so we meditated for the first time. I meditated for the first time with her, and I started crying because it was the first time I experienced my mind without any thoughts. And it was such a shocking, like striking experience for me that I immediately started crying. And yeah, that was really, it was just it was an interesting moment. That was the thing. The moment it happened, I was like really struck by it, but didn't like lead me to believe that I had that this was my path. Actually, it took me a few more months. Continue traveling. I was suddenly on this farm in the south of Spain, gorgeous farm, like really beautiful farm, beautiful people. There's some social interactions that were kind of like were interesting, but but I realized when I was on this farm that I'm still depressed. Like it didn't matter where I was, it didn't matter what I was doing or who I was with. The constant is me. Like no matter where I am, I'm still depressed. And then that's when I really took the deep dive inward, and I started with mantra meditation. And that was okay, but what really helped me was Muji. I spent a lot of time doing self-inquiry, and I just listened to Muji all the time and continually was asking myself the question, who am I, for about a year. I mean, and I read so many books about presence and Buddhism and spirituality, but I was reading it and it was helping me once again manage, but I hadn't broken free of the certain paradigms that bound me. Then at this time I was working in New York for a year, and then I left again and I went traveling in Southeast Asia. And when I was in Malaysia, I did a Vipassana course, my first Vipassana course. And around the 7th or 8th day, I was struck by presence for the first time. I had read about it for so long. In some ways, I've been pursuing it. And then in this one moment, this quote that I had on my computer for years came to mind, and it's wherever you are, be all there. And in that moment, I realized mind, body, soul, heart. Like there was like within the moment, and also in some ways after the moment, I just was struck by presence, and I was witnessing myself be in presence, and it was incredible, and it completely changed my life. Like that was my moment that completely. That I really feel my life turned a corner. In some ways, whatever corner I've turned, I've still been in some ways been going in that direction. And an interesting thing happened for me after that month. After that Vipassana, that next month, I experienced a month of instantaneous manifestation. And I mention it because of your week of unconditional love. Literally I had like no thoughts in my mind. And every time I had a thought, it would just immediately happen. Like it was insane. And then I was in Thailand at that time, and I got really sick, and then it ended. Then it was like integrating the universal will and my will, and I at that time had all these theories about understanding what it means to be in contact with manifestation as a universe, like guiding you, and also as your own like discernment, saying yes and no at certain times. And then I feel like many moments, like, I mean, as we all do, of awakening moments. But now I work as an energy healer, and it took still 2 years between that moment and me kind of coming out as an energy healer, and lots of different experiences for me to sort of be where I am today. And I feel similar to what you two are expressing. Where I am today is really, I feel full in my knowing, and yet I'm always experiencing presence in that. And I don't know what presence is until I'm present, so there's like both this knowing, and yet, I mean, the not knowing of everything as you just meet the present moment. So that's a bit of my story.
Yeah.
Right, very interesting. Yeah, I just like when you talked about like constantly hearing thoughts, and you had this moment of, for the first time, not having any thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I had it like when I had that meditation, I also that I talked about earlier. one realization that I had just like prior to that was like there's two parts of you. There's the thoughts that's constantly as nagging, talking. And then it's like, who's hearing the thoughts? You step back and just try to see who's the witness. And that's really when I had that experience, like trying to figure out who's the witness. Then it came as an experience. But it's funny, even though you have these experiences and they come and go, it's like you always fall out of it. And sometimes you catch it, then you lose it, you catch it and lose it.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any certain techniques that you use to like stay in it?
Actually, what I've been exploring more and more in recent years are that the coming and going is happening within what we are. So it's not really about staying, it's just noticing that coming and going is happening within what you are, and what is witnessing even that, the coming and going. So it's just like, I remember one of the like milestones was I was actually listening to Muji also, and he said something like, who's witnessing the witness, who's aware of the witness, and I was like, what? But it wasn't the witness like the source, but it's just like, and it's because you are aware of you are aware that you are aware, and what's aware of awareness, and it's just move back, and you can see that it's all happening within what you are, and what's that, and I don't know how to describe it.
No, I have. I mean, I feel Maddox and I've experienced that, and it feels like there's an infinite number of ripples. There's all because it always, once you have the observer that's witnessing the observed, then it's like, well, what's holding that? Like what's holding the awareness of the witness? And it's like going back and back and back, and it feels as if you can like go out into like the cosmos, into infinity, and you're still holding everything that's within and everything that's without, and yet there's still this. I still ask the question, well, what's aware of this? Like, what's even holding my perception of the cosmos? Like, looking all the way back through the rabbit hole. Like, it's like happening all at once. And then to your question, Tobias, for me, it's always love. Like, even if it's not this like bliss experience that coming through the heart or whatnot, but just like grounding my thoughts, like always turning to love and light. And it's like in any moment you can be from a frequency of expansion and from magic, and a magic of the mystery, like coming from love.
Yeah. Okay. We said that we would talk about like the spiritual awakening as a topic. For me, it feels like there's when you talk about awakening, there's like the awakening to realizing that there is something more. You don't get a full experience of it. Perhaps as us, we have glimpses of it, but it's that first step, and then you have like the next step where you actually realize what you are, like self-realization or enlightenment or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not sure, but like from the experiences I have had, it feels to me like we're moving as a combined consciousness to this awakening that's supposed to happen to all of us. And it's becoming bigger and bigger. It's just not like prior it was like these few enlightened people who came here on earth, like the Buddha, Jesus, and all that. But now I started to feel like it's something bigger that's going to happen. It's something more universal. Like it's a collective consciousness that's going to happen.
Yeah, I've seen that too. Even though I'm not sure, but one of my mushroom experiences, I could see that it's a bigger awakening taking place on Earth, where there will be a lot of people waking up, more than it has been in the past. Of course, I'm not sure about this. We'll see what happens. But I guess in the end, it boils down to going to yourself first and find the truth. What happens after that, we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
think,
I agree.
yeah, I think you can, at least when I'm like witnessing what's happening in the world, it feels like it's already happening just before our eyes.
Yeah.
Even though I have had experience of this will happen, like in a spiritual experience or whatever, it feels like just witnessing what's happening in the world, like seeing people, how they're thinking and how people you didn't think were at all interested in spirituality. There's always this seed of like curiosity about spirituality. And that's the fun thing when you start talking about it more publicly. You start seeing people like you never thought they were interested, like approach you and start talking about these real profound thoughts and all that. So I think just witnessing the world and just gives me proof at least that it's happening. But it's I think also one thing that I've been thinking about recently is like the way it's going to happen. I mean, traditionally you have maybe now I'll get some enemies, but I feel like there's going to be needs to be a new way of awakening, or a more advanced way, if you will. That perhaps they're not the existing traditional ways. It's a branch, but I believe there is going to be some involvement within that branch, if you understand what I'm meaning. So I think like just witnessing what's happening in the world, it feels like there's going to be like if there's going to be this many people who's going to wake up, we're going to need other ways of doing it.
I think suffering is what's waking people up. And I think we have an accelerating amount of suffering in the world with poverty, with stress, with economical and everything. I mean, even in the rich countries in the West, like all of we three come from rich countries and have good lives economically, but still there's so many people even here that are super unhappy and suffer a lot, and sometimes and I think this pushes people inwards, and I think that the suffering might accelerate, and I think it's a major factor to waking up. Suffering makes people wake up. Basically, it's suffering is grace, the way I see it. It's so connected with realizing who we are. By looking at our suffering, we understand love, basically. Yeah. You want to add something, Anazya?
Well, just feeling from a young age, I sort of felt when I started working and going to offices, and I would sit in front of computers, and I really didn't enjoy it, and I kept feeling like I didn't come to life to be depressed. Like I couldn't have come to life to do this. It just didn't make sense to me. It really just made no sense to me, and it's what motivated my travels and my movement. And I feel that feeling, to both of your points, is kind of what a lot of people are feeling. It's just like tired of the systems at large and tired of the political systems, like deeply tired, and also that type of fatigue like leads to a really like, do we really, like, is this really what's happening right now?
Yeah.
And and it is kind of like insane, the amount of suffering and poverty and you know, the economic situation, how it's so spread between the majority 99 to 1% and all that terminology, but just feeling that so many people don't have the basic sustenance to be able to feel themselves.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, and I feel that many people are starting to not just sort of consent to that sort of paradigm and really starting to question and wonder, how can I live in this world that nourishes myself and like nourishes my being? And also I feel the internet, the internet has all these things, but it's also a way for many, for us to be speaking and for many people to be connecting to new ideas and to like seeing how other people are thinking across the world. Going to Europe changed my life. I didn't like meeting Europeans completely altered my perceptions of humans. Like, actually, which I know sounds ridiculous, but growing up in like this like elite kind of East Coast perspective, not my like personal economic background, but my school background was very elitist, and like there was a lack of empathy, and there was a lack of like care of the person. It was really success based, and when I went to Europe, people really saw me in a way that I never I never thought was possible, and it completely changed my life. And I think just seeing, and now with YouTube, you can connect to people who think and see the world differently without having to like travel there. And how can we install that in our like physical lives is a real blessing.
It's like a physical reflection of oneness, like it's just connecting everything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to feel like the old traditional way of like going into a cave and meditating for 20 years and then coming out like being awake. That's not the way I feel it's going to approach as we go forward. Basically for the reasons that you mentioned.
It might coexist, the old traditions with new, but I also feel that the awakening will take new forms. It's my personal feeling. And I've seen it in visions as well, and also like awakenings, people get enlightened in groups and stuff like that. But of course I don't know. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, and also faster. I mean, I feel like what you talked about, Tobias. I've heard of it. I never actually met someone who experienced it. Like all that depression has to be burned in an instant. But I feel more people are going to start experiencing that, and I feel it's more people like us. It's like people who are experiencing it, speaking about it, and it like kind of like brings fire to the collective fire. You know, just us talking about it. And we're going to start seeing that happening more often.
And the more people that wake up, the faster it will go, I guess.
Yeah.
And I start to feel as well when they're suffering, once you have this like different relationship to it now than you had before. Like when you were suffering before, you were in the suffering.
Yeah.
Now it's more like, okay, you can see the suffering and you can still feel the suffering, but you know it's pulling you somewhere. It's like it's something leaving you, so something new can come in. So when I look back as well, like the 10, 15 years of depression that I had, I mean, it was worth it just for that one moment that I had. So, and it's the same like when it's happening now. I didn't realize it at the time, like 10 years in the future, it's going to be great. But now I have a different like relationship to it. Like, okay, now I'm suffering, but it's going to lead to something better.
And when you start to understand suffering and see the divine in it, you can actually see that it's opening the heart. And it might not always look like that. I mean, people might be acting like really egoistic and violence and all that, but it's actually opening the heart. It's leading to love, all of it, because you understand suffering. You understand love through suffering. I mean, compassion is actually seeing the suffering in someone else and offering another option of offering love and relieving suffering.
I know everyone doesn't experience it in this way, but I feel depression is in some ways an initiation. Like so many people I've met on the spiritual path have dealt with depression, and it is sort of feeling I think it's also many people are depressed because they're just empathic. Like, you know, we're feeling everything all the time, and it's like kind of, I mean, as you're saying, man, it's when we can sort of turn those feelings and like open our heart into it. It sorts this and sort of like, instead of just like accepting the pain of the world, it's like you accept it and then you bring out love, and you're spreading out a whole new vibration that we can all sort of start to like pulse at and like have our frequency at.
And people who have started to wake up or waked up completely can also help guide people in this time. I feel, at least. I think we're going to see more of that. Well, most likely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think is the next step, like the awakening, like when we talk about enlightenment and all that? How do you feel towards that? Is that something you think will happen, like for mankind as it is right now, or is that something like 10,000 years in the future?
Can I add to that question? Just because I'm really curious about what is the contemporary concept of enlightenment? Like in this contemporary day, does it mean to be like have no mind? Does it mean to like to notice every feeling and to not be attached to the feeling? Does it mean not to have any feelings? Does it mean to be bliss and happy all the time? I'm so curious about what it means to truly be free. Like it doesn't mean being free means you're no longer entangled in this like contemporary reality, or how is that entanglement actually being held? And I'm just so curious, like where empathy, like to notice the world and not be of the world. Like what does it mean in yourself to be noticing and to not be attached? Like yeah, I just find it fascinating, and I honestly feel the answer will be different for every person, and that's why I think the difference is in the past, in the world of like guruhood and heroes, and in the collective, it's like we will all embody enlightenment. That's so unique to our own being. Like someone may have no mind, and someone may be in bliss all the time, or someone may be more feeling empathy, and I just feeling it's like that's that honoring and the trust that the uniqueness of your soul is true, and I feel something like this.
Sometimes I feel that it has already happened. It's just recognizing it. But pretty much what I always come back to is just, I mean, I trust in God. God is in control.
Yeah.
It's all well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's the concept of like striving for that or having that end goal is just going away more and more for each day. And it's just like there's no goal and there's no start. It's just being where you are in always.
Well, I guess
and you just go through experiences. It's just you're standing still, and once you are in that standstill point, that concept just goes away.
I can feel that when you are going somewhere, like for enlightenment, for instance, you're actually like creating a situation where it's not here. But in my experience, here and now is all there is. So, so yeah, looking for it somewhere else is obviously not going to work. And I guess looking for it here, I don't even think it's. Yeah, I think it's about recognizing that it's already here. Basically.
Yeah.
But how do we do that? I don't know. Well, sometimes I do know, sometimes I don't.
Yeah. Just by being, yeah, it's true. I feel like every moment it's different. Like being in the present moment could be so whole, and yet I always feel also the shadow, like longing. I feel longing has a place, because it's the same thing that longs is the same is the longing is the remembering of God. You remember what it means to be completely free, and I feel that longing has a place in every present moment if it's there. I mean, if it's not there, I just don't feel we need to sort of shy away for it. It means that we're not present. I actually think it's our call home to like be further beyond our conception of humanity, to be really beyond the illusion, if that it while in form, who that could be, and yet what does it mean for that to be?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, for me, it used to be like trying to chase an experience. I think both you and me, Magnus, have had that, where it's looking for that experience which you feel is okay. This is something you're rising above, or you're experiencing waves of love or bliss, and you get into chasing that experience, and you forget about your actual experience and think that. Okay, that experience over there, that was really good. So that must be what is enlightenment or whatever you want to call it. and what you're experiencing right now is something not worth not worth experiencing. So I think it just boils down to like just surrendering and allowing just life to pass by in a way.
And I have like a mantra, not a mantra, but something, a reminder that knowing and not knowing, like remembering and forgetting comes and goes, but when I'm in doubt, I just follow love, because I know that's true, and then I can reconnect. So when I feel confused, I just remember, at least I turn my attention towards God or love, and hopefully one day.
Yeah. And it's interesting when you like meditate on God or do the mantras, there is a feeling that you really can't describe that just starts to grow with inside. And I think just connecting with that and being present with that as much as possible is just make for a more beautiful experience.
And it reminds me, this is also a quote by Magnus, but that's that love is stillness in motion. And so that always there's both, like there's both this, like the emptiness and the fullness, the stillness and the motion, like both are always happening. And so it's kind of just noticing from where, like, is it the mind is just like kind of chattering, or is it something that's like noticing the wholeness? Like there's like, so basically what I'm saying is like within oneness, you're both going to experience duality and God. Like it's not really to have one over the other, because they're always, I mean, not all, I mean, who's to say what will always be here? But it seems like right now both are always here. So it's just kind of resting in that, in your humanity and your divinity at like in every moment.
That's something that more and more my insights or experiences are showing that every time, that all dualities are one, like existence and non-existence are the same thing. Like oneness are made out of duality. It's not one or the other. The witness and that which is witnessed are one. And when they merge, it's just this third option that it's like being outside of the experience itself, but from the inside of the experience, which should be like, it's a paradox, but it's like oneness just makes the paradox possible. Like everything is one, and it's on the intellectual level, but everything is one, but very few people actually contemplate what it means. Like existence and non-existence are the same thing. You hear that? And like the witness and that which is witnessed are one, which means and that is really interesting, because it's really hard to talk about an I or an experience to begin with if they're the same thing. So it's really, it's not a thing for the mind.
It's not.
That's for sure.
Or at least not the mind as we know it. It's not for the thinking. It's for the intelligence that's far beyond. It's like the innate intelligence is that all the time, what you're describing.
Yeah, and I had this experience recently where my mind just gave up completely. It couldn't, like, I went into the experience of expanding or whatever you want to call it, and in that experience it's my mind just completely flipped out. It couldn't understand it. It wasn't an intellectual thing of like grasping what was happening. It's just being there and being present in it, not like getting involved in what the mind want to make of it. I really liked like the quote from Robert Adams, like I think it's something the only thing that reading will do, like sitting in books and gathering a lot of knowledge, is it will make you a knowledgeable idiot, which I think is brilliant, because it's actually going into the experience that will actually give you the understanding.
I actually remember an experience very related to that. I was super angry one time, chasing enlightenment and chasing these experiences of bliss that I had had hundreds of times. And I was sitting in a meditation group, a bunch of Buddhist people, and I did a koan meditation, which means you meditate on a paradox, like how can black and white be the same thing? And every time my mind came up with an answer, I said, no, that's not it. Try again, try again, try again. And I sat like that, like super angry, super focused on that. And I kept the focus for like 1.5 hours, 40 minutes at least. Just, no, that's it. Keep on. And and I had like this, I just gave up eventually, but I can't do this anymore. And then I was walking home with a friend. He followed me, and I was so tired after the meditation because I had been sitting there like super intensely trying to break through, but I just gave up eventually. And while he was talking, I was noticing that I was absolutely silent in my head. There's no thought at all. And I realized that I was sliding into not knowingness. There was no knowledge. And in not knowingness, I could see reality, because I had no like ideas about reality. I had no mind filters labeling all this stuff. I was just observing what is, and it was just divine. So I think, like the Rod of Balance called, like knowledge can lead you to like a certain point, but I actually had, this is one of my mushroom trips way years back. I was talking to this being who said, you need to understand that there's nothing to understand. And there's like a paradox in this, that I need to understand intellectually that there's nothing to understand. So you can use your mind to understand that you have to let go of your mind, basically.
Yeah.
And it's like a paradox, but yeah.
And it's a practice. I mean, what you're talking about is it's like in some ways reprogramming our knowing mind. And a part of I've had some experiences when I was in Sweden, actually, like talking to I don't actually know what it was, if it was my ego, if it was my mind and my I, but really just I was like, you can just let go, everything is love. And you're like, no, it's not. Like, look at all this proof that, like, all these beliefs we have, that we have to know things, that people will hurt us, that people will judge us, and really sort of like reprogramming those foundational beliefs into relaxation and knowing it's okay. And then I've been experimenting with just expanding my mind, like into like dissolving it into the universe, like into the cosmic mind. And I wonder if we've just if it's been sort of confused. Like, I don't know if the mind is for thinking. I actually feel the mind is for communicating with things outside, with aspects outside of this dimension, and our hearts actually is what's supposed to lead us here in this world. Like, our body knows the earth. Our body is the earth. Like, that's what it's for. It's for being on the earth. And the mind's actually it's like, aspect of the Godhead. It's like that connection beyond. And it's I've been experimenting with like reprogramming that sort of reprogram my being to be in that sort of alignment with intelligence versus the other way. And then but in that intention, I meet what I've been believing. I meet the fears and the limiting beliefs and everything, and it's incredible. It's incredible to witness yourself in that way.
Yeah, for sure. So Anazya, you talked about that you work with healing. Can you explain a little bit how you work with that and the kind of work that you do?
Okay, yeah. So I offer hand-based intuitive healing, Akashic record reading and channeling, and systemic constellations. They're all basically intuitive. And when I talk about the cosmic mind, and I'm feeling into the Akashic records, which is the soul history of every thought, emotion. It's like an energetic library that is a record of human history. I say this, and yet it's infinity. Like, the record of human history is infinity. So it's just, but it's an interesting cosmological phenomenon that we all have access to. We all have, I mean, we all have access to everything. So that's what I offer. And I'll talk a bit about how I came upon this. So I was traveling. I was certified in Reiki in 2016, while I was in India, and that was one of my awakening experiences. Was my initiation into Reiki. The last day of the course, I was in Rishikesh, sitting with this man named Praveen, who's a really beautiful Reiki master. And he like put something, I actually have no idea what happened. He put something on my forehead that felt like a stone, and it started like vibrating, but I knew it was vibrating, and like everything was, and I basically had an awakening experience where everything, like I was crying and laughing for about an hour, and everything was dissolving. Like every time I had a thought, it just completely dissolved, and I would start laughing and crying. I was seeing everything of my past that I was holding on to, and I had identified as me, and how that was, and in that moment I could see and the laughter, like the miracle of being present. I was experiencing both, and I was just basically, everything was like everything in my past was just dissolving in that one moment, and it was an incredible experience. And after that, I spent a lot of time doing Reiki to my own body and just energy healing. It took about a year, really a year and a half, before I started offering to other people, and it took a year and a half before I even considered that this would be the path, because I was following the path of farming, or just like, I don't know, being vagabond, traveling around. Like I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And then it sort of just, when I was in Peru, and went to Peru October of 2017. And the Sacred Valley is a really amazing place on earth. They call it the Valley of Intention, of manifestation. There's a lot of between the Apus, the mountain spirits, and the sacred ruins. It's just like a really sacred charged place of spirit. And I went to one of these ruins called Uyaytantambo, which is in the Sacred Valley on the way to Machu Picchu. And I sat there. I was throughout my time in the valley, I was just like listening to voices and being guided. And when I was sitting there, the Akashic records just opened, and I had no doubt. It was as if I always knew it, but it was like meeting it for the first time. And they opened, and slowly I started practicing, and I started working at an ayahuasca retreat center in the valley, offering intuitive healing and Akashic record reading. And during that time, I started working with systemic constellations with my partner. And I'm going to, well, I'd like to talk about how we met. So I left the valley the summer of 2018. I came back to the States because my brother got married. And then I went to Sweden because I've always wanted to go to Northern Europe, and I'd never been. And it was just like, felt really called to go to Sweden. And so I was traveling. So this past summer, I was traveling in Sweden. I was really excited to do it would be my third Vipassana course. I sat 2 in Asia, 1 in Malaysia, as I mentioned, and 1 in Nepal. And I was really excited to go to Sweden to sit my third one. And when I volunteered for 2 days, and then I got the form again to sign in. As people have done Vipassana know, you have to they ask if you do energy work. And I had lied in Peru months ago before. I mean, I was doing energy work, but I was like, it's not like that. It's not, I don't need to like say I'm doing it, but I mean, it was essentially a lie. And then when I was there, I was like, I can't lie. Like I can't say I'm not doing energy work. And so I told them I was doing it. And since I told them, they asked me to leave. So I got kicked out of the Vipassana Center. But this is actually how I ended up meeting the two of you, because I had to head back to where I was staying. And where I was staying, there was this man there who was like, "Oh, you should go to Umeå and meet this grandmaster who works with archangels." And I was like, "Yeah, of course I should go do that, because I mean, I love doing things like that." And so I ended up going, and the next following weeks I ended up going to Umeå, and we all met at energy workshop in Umeå.
Yeah, we met there.
Yeah.
All 3 of us.
Yeah.
And one funny thing is, we started talking, And it turned out that you and I had been at that Vipassana at the same time. Like, because I went to that Vipassana. Vipassana is a Buddhist meditation, a 10-day thing. So I was there. I wasn't kicked out though.
Yeah.
But it's quite funny that we had actually met like a few weeks earlier, or but of course we didn't see each other, and you're not allowed to talk. But then we met at this workshop, and started to have contact.
Yeah, Magnus and I kept in touch, and then I went up north. I went all the way up to Tromsø in Norway, which is like incredible, and then ended up staying with Magnus and Edvik for some time, and then so that's how the Voices of Light and Maldorma have made connections.
Yeah, and it's been very interesting knowing you, because a lot of interesting things happened when we were spending time together. Like a lot of experiences, a lot of, I would say, like mushroom psychedelic experiences without mushrooms. I have had a few of those before as well in India, and some spontaneous ones, but this was on a whole new level for me, at least, with another human being in that sense. So that was super beautiful.
It's interesting when you have those experiences where you meet a person and it's not like the human bodies meeting, it's souls connecting. Like you get just this feeling that you can really put words to it, but you just connect on a different level.
That's exactly the word I would use, like souls meeting another soul.
Yeah, definitely.
Good description.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have. Yeah, it was really stark. I mean, it was really intense for me as well. Because I mean, I said to Magnus when I met both of you, I was sort of surprised when I saw the two of you in the workshop, because there's mostly like ages. I'm just saying, like mostly older people and mostly females. I mean, most energy things or spiritual things it's very female heavy, and it's also, you know, people tend to be a bit older than me. I'm I guess, whatever, in terms of age. And when I saw the two of you, when I looked into both of your eyes, I was like, my first thought was like, they know the truth, like, or like whatever that means. I could like feel both of you, like I could feel you're both awake, and to whatever extent I'm like stumbling, because these words can be definitive, and I don't mean to define what any of these experiences means. I'll just say my soul resonated with the two of you, and I was surprised in some way, and then it was really amazing to like continue my connections with Magnus, and the way we connected in a multiple dimensional way was unlike any I've experienced in the past. And also my own, I channel quite a lot, and I see and perceive many things as part of my healing work, and this was a part of my everyday, and then to be received so well by Magnus was really cool and interesting, and we could really journey and like travel into the ethers in some way. That was really special.
Yeah, and this Christmas I actually came visiting you in New York as well for a couple of weeks. And that was wonderful as well. And the things that started to happen in Sweden just continued in New York. I remember one particular experience that was very beautiful. I had this, like, the day before sometimes I also channel, I kind of get information from my higher self, or whatever you want to call it. That you and I would, like, merge and become one. And I was like, yeah, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. But the day after, we were laying in bed and talking, and this experience started to happen, but I don't remember exactly what you said, but I think I was in a way stuck in my mind, and you said something like, but Magnus doesn't even exist, you know. And immediately when I said it, I was behind Magnus, and we met behind the personalities. I mean, our bodies were there, but we met in awareness. in beingness behind the physical reality. That's really super cool. Super cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was really cool.
That's a wonderful experience. And I had experience that with Tobias as well.
I think it's such a cool experience when you have these synchronicities and like the roads are just lining up. You see like just things happening in your life. You finally understand. You get all the dots together and like piece the puzzle together and finally like realize what it was all for, which moment it led up to. So it's those moments are really wonderful.
Yeah. And it's also really interesting to, I mean, even though we are exploring the same truth, we have very different paths. And it's very interesting to look into someone else's path and learn from that. Because there are a lot of new themes coming up that you introduced. That's been super helpful for me.
Yeah, and for me, I feel my heart never opened as it did with Magnus, and I mean that in terms of the practice. I mean, I know I don't know if both of you do Bhakti yoga quite a bit as well, Tobias?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, and that's just not. I just don't really have a background in that, and I guess when I was with Magnus, I was receiving so much acceptance. I like was it and it's not and it and once again it's like when you notice the places in you that aren't accepting and being in that like well of love. I mean the relationship I have with my heart chakra has changed, and like my practices with love and opening my heart, and I really attribute that to my connections with you, Magnus, and like your own practice, teaching, like informing me about my own being, and I really appreciate that. Yeah, so there's always like an exchange.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing about what is happening now. It's so many different paths, and you can learn so much from each other, based on what you like every person's path. I mean, that's what I tried to explain earlier, that it's not the traditional way of awakening. It's not like going to the ancient books. I'm not saying that is wrong. That's a path, but there's different paths, and I feel they're all just trying to merge together. Like there's the end goal of them all is the same. I think we can just help each other.
I come to think about an experience that you and I shared, Tobias, when we both had like this huge awakening experience and we had some friends over here as well. And I mean, Tobias and I had experienced through psychedelics a lot of insane experience of oneness, of being one with the universe, and all this experience was great, but it also created an idea that enlightenment would be being one with the universe, and that's in there too. But in this experience, what I saw was togetherness is also oneness. Like coming together as humans, being human together is oneness. And that's where we should start. And I think the new awakening will be a lot of togetherness and doing it together more than alone. That's how I feel, at least. And I think it's beautiful, super beautiful. And it was a beautiful moment to share with you, Tobias, and also our other brother, Johan, was share the same experience. Sure. So it's a great evening.
Yeah.
It's so sweet how it's like a family affair. I mean, that's not weird. It's like the cutest, like seeing the two of you side by side, like warms my heart so much. It's just so sweet.
Yeah, I mean that's really cool that we're brothers, and we also have Johan as brother as well, who's also into spirituality. I think that's quite unique in a way, that so many in our family is leaning towards the same thing or are on the path together. So I think that's really great.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So what do you feel? What's next for you guys? Do do you have anything on the horizon that you're going to do? Like any events or anything that you're going to attend? Anything planned?
Well, I can say I'm working on a few different healing programs. One is they're both sort of in the systemic constellation based, and one's called the Healing Call Sessions, which is a donation-based call that's once a week, and it's sort of when you kind of bring a question or like just what's alive for you in the moment, and we constellate it. So constellations is kind of a way of entering into intuitive journey. There's so many ways to do constellations, but you kind of just tune in and you're able to receive information. It's kind of an incredible modality because there's not much to do or not much to know. You just sort of set the intention, you hold the space, and somehow something comes. And we're also, I work with someone to do systemic constellations. We're also starting a program called Levolution, where we have these 3 call series where we talk about parenting on race, beyond wrongdoings and right doings, and soul song, dream your soul song into form. So we have these 3 topics about sort of for me, the main premise of all of this is to find where the roots of our unconditional love are based and where that have not been seen. In many things, we work from lack or fear and insecurity, and I mean that's okay. That's what's been happening. But many of these systemic problems keep occurring because there's something that hasn't been illuminated yet, and I feel it's love and like how we can really ground everything, like everything of material and immaterial in love, and kind of find the roots of love in our own like contemporary history of oppression and violence, and meet each other from there. So that's something I'm really excited about. And then just sharing my own work and like meeting new clients and whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what's
and
up for
you're starting
me.
up Voices of Light more actively now.
Yeah, so this is really exciting too.
Yeah.
Voices of Light, and just to like have conversations with different people I've met on my travels who are awake in their own way. I mean, kind of going to what you were saying, Tobias, with Vipassana, with many traditional spiritual teachings, it's like you have to find one way and kind of stick to it. But I feel like every way is your way, like every person. And I think there is this thing of like a spiritual commodity where we want to try all these different practices. We practice the practices more than we do the practice, which is that's there too. But really, everyone's path is so unique. And so everyone's vibration and frequency and flavor and perception in this awakening process is unique. And just to kind of give platform that there is no wrong or right, there is just who you are, and who you are is completely welcome here. Like it's completely welcome. There's nothing that you have to kind of accommodate for to fit in. There's no, like, that whole concept is starting to fall away. There's nothing to fit into except being yourself. And so that's why I think this platform, I want to start Voices of Light to show people I know around the world who are just being themselves. And like, they're all really different and they're all great.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And you and I, Tobias, Moldorma.
Gonna try to do some more podcasts, hopefully.
Yeah, we're doing the podcast. I'm trying to finish my 3rd book now, the 2nd book in the Heart to Heart series, and I'm also having a course here in Sweden called To Live from the Heart. And Tobias is also, what are you up to?
Not much.
Being a father.
Being a father, that's a full-time thing. That's amazing in itself. But I have some things on the horizon that I'm thinking about doing, but nothing too concrete at the moment. I want to talk about yet. To be continued, I'll say.
On a personal level, I feel it's a lot about opening the heart more and more. The head knowledge part, I feel, for me is pretty much over. It's just opening the heart.
Say it, over.
What?
And I just love how you said it. It's over. It's just like that's it.
Yeah. I'm full. I mean, those the people who know me know that I've been like a mind guy, reading books, figuring things out, trying to understand, and it actually took me quite far, but it took me to the point of sort of like I need to understand. There's nothing to understand, and now it's all love, and that's great.
Yeah, it shows you the tip of the iceberg, I would say, at least. But,
Yeah.
after that, you need to take the leap and go beneath the water, discover what it actually is.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we should cut it short here. And thank you so much for joining. It was a pleasure to have this conversation. I hope we can do it again.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, and see you in the next one.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.